everyone, and welcome back to A Cup of Coffee. We're here for season two. I'm Umar, and this is my co-host Amaan.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back.
So, Amaan, what's new for this season?
This season will be a little bit different. So last season we had the 20 minutes of the beginning was me and you talking about whatever it is we wanted to talk about, and then we had 40 minutes with a guest. This time around, it's going to be a little bit different because we figured that some changes were needed. A lot of the times it felt like we didn't have enough time to talk with our guests, and our guests were really, really, really cool. And so we want to make sure that doesn't happen this season. And the interesting conversations can last as long as necessary. So we're going to be doing a full hour whenever we have a guest. And if we can't find a guest, just so that we can upload every week, we're going to be doing episodes with just me and Omer if we couldn't find a guest for that week, like this one. This one is more so just because we wanted to get started and get back into things, just me and Omer, and see how things would be. And that's what the new season looks like. It should be very exciting. I loved all of our episodes that we uploaded last year. It was very exciting, very fun, and we learned a lot. It was just really, really great, and I'm so happy to be back.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think the new format should help us have the episodes be a little bit more focused.
Hmm.
Just because we're having the guest the whole episode, I think will be a bit more participatory
Yeah.
as well. So I think if this will be the best of both worlds, because we'll have whole episodes towards ourselves, which I know some people were asking for that as well. So I
Yeah.
think this new format will work really well towards us getting more focused episodes, and we're also considering bringing back previous guests at some point. So if you
Yes.
guys have a guest that you really want to come back, please do let us know.
Yes, because some episodes were very, very, very exciting, very fun, and just in those conversations, man, like I will never ever forget. Well, especially never forget Daniel's episode,
Yeah, that
partially because it was a really, really great conversation, but also because for those of you that don't know, I had to re-record all of my audio because it got lost.
Yeah,
So,
if you go
but
back and
it,
watch that episode and notice that Amon's lip movements don't exactly match his words all the time, it's
yeah.
because Amon dubbed over his own audio like he was speaking a different language.
Yeah, and also we were able to like we had part of my audio from Omer's end, and so we could hear like what I was saying was just too low for me to like tune it up, I guess. So I knew exactly what to say word for word. It's just that I had to re-say all of it for the whole episode. It was really fun though, because I got the chance to practice my voice acting skills. It was pretty fun. But yeah, a lot of good episodes and a lot of guests that we could bring back. A lot of new guests potentially. The next episode is very exciting. I won't spoil who's in it, but it should be a very good episode. But
Yeah,
honestly, I'm excited for this one as well. Just being back and talking with you, Omer.
yeah,
So
it's been a while.
yeah,
Yeah, so, Amon, so why have we been away?
why have we been away? That's a very good question. Um, so honestly, a lot of personal reasons, and I mean, obviously,
Yeah,
why like we haven't been able to record. We've been busy as well, just a lot going on, and it's we haven't been able to get around to recording, and I really, really wanted to. We've been meaning to do this for a really long time, and honestly, part of it was just like, yeah, like we had, we could have recorded, I think, and we should have recorded a little bit earlier than this, but eventually we got around to it, and now we're doing it. It's been how many months? Like
I think at least 6 months.
6 months or something, so like half a year since we've recorded. So I guess instead of asking the usual question, what's been on your mind this last week? What's been on your mind for the last 6 months or however long we've been gone?
Just wondering. No, I mean, I'm sure a couple of people have missed this podcast, but I have missed it as well.
Oh
Just
yeah.
because, being able to talk about stuff in this format is really helpful week after week, and
Hmm.
even just listening to the recordings after, we're done and we're just editing through the whole thing. It just, it's this weird kind of stimulating, uh, feeling about it. Just being able to like push your thoughts into the world and just see how they sound to others.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that, and a lot has happened in these last 6 months.
Oh yeah. We got a new president.
Yeah, yeah, I got a new president. I tried very
COVID's almost over.
well, maybe for us, but
Yeah,
not
for in
really.
America.
Yeah, but it's gotten worse in some parts of the world.
Yeah, which is
A
tough.
a lot of there's been a lot of good news in the world, a lot
True.
of really bad news.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, the world in many ways has changed in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
I
I'd
mean,
definitely say so.
yeah, so just I was just thinking about how you know we want this podcast to evolve as the world around us evolves as well.
Hmm.
That's why we put in the change in format. Um, just because we want to be more focused, right? Because the whole point of
Yeah.
this podcast, especially in like the first season's sort of general theme was kind of a self-help theme,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
just inspiring people to you know just be better versions of themselves and just showing how various people did it through our guests, right? Because they all
Yeah.
had their own journeys, and they're all still going on, just all still on their own journeys in many
Yeah.
ways. And
Definitely. I think we're all on that journey. Like at some point on that journey, we're always, striving to be better versions of ourselves. And I think one thing that personally I've realized in these last, 6 months or however many months ago it was that I came to this. I guess not really a conclusion. It's one of those things that you knew before, but never really hit you until you like dealt with something or you thought about it enough to the point where you realized it. But one of the things that I realized was, no one ever really knows like everything, right? So no one ever gets to that, I guess, perfect version of themselves. And you could think of that and think like, oh, well, that sucks. Then what's the point, anyways, right? But you could also think that it's exciting and it's good because it means we'll never run out of things to do, right? That's the beauty of humanity itself, right? Is that you never run out of direction. You never run out of place to go. And alhamdulillah, like as Muslims, we have that direction. A lot of people have different directions in their lives, and it's just a beautiful thing about being a human that like no matter what we do, we'll constantly have somewhere to go, something to do, some way to better ourselves. And it really like there's this one movie about Achilles, and in that movie, I think our first guest Kamran actually showed me this, and in the movie, the main character Achilles, if y'all don't know the story, he basically becomes invincible after going into this river, except for his Achilles heel, right? Like his heel was the only thing, his only weak spot, and so along this journey and everything, he meets someone, and she's talking about how like she wishes she was immortal, and like the gods are so like they must live like great. In Greek history, obviously, the gods were very different from most of the gods today, but they were like,
they were really interesting, right? Because they were
yeah,
incredibly flawed creatures.
very, yeah, which is just
Like they
interesting for
like
like a image of a god to be flawed, but it was what they had.
yeah, because they felt more like forces. Like just reading about it right now, right? Because we read about it like not as a religion now. Like back then
Yeah,
it was a religion, but now we read it
more
more
stone
as
mythology.
more so as a set of mythology, and just it just seems like they seem like forces of nature that are exceptionally human.
Yeah, definitely. And so yeah, so back to that story, he basically told her like when she was like, um, thought talking about the gods and how they're so lucky to get to be immortal, they get to live forever, and all their lives. And she was like, so what Achilles told her was, the gods envy us because we aren't immortal, but that means that every moment is so much more beautiful because you don't know how much longer you'll have this life, right? And obviously, most of our beliefs, most of everyone's beliefs today are very different from the Greek beliefs from back then, but I think some of that still applies, right? Because we don't know how long our lives will be. We don't know you know, we don't even know how long, like we don't know how long we'll have a job. We don't know how long we'll have certain friends. We don't know how long we'll live in a certain place. Things are just constantly changing. Like you said, we haven't recorded in 6 months, and it feels like so much has changed in the world, right? Things are just so different. Things are constantly changing for everyone personally, and that's why self growth is so huge. It has so many different stages. Just when you think you know so much about yourself and about the world, you come to a new realization and a new feels like chapter in your life sometimes, and you realize that there's so much more for you to learn, and part of it is scary, but part of it's really, really exciting. And so that's just the I guess the beautiful thing about never really being there, and also things just constantly changing, is that there's just so much out there to know and so much out there to learn, which is also why I love this podcast, and I love the way that we do it, the guests that we have, because all of these different things we can learn from so many different people that have gone through so many different things, have accomplished so many different things, and it really, really impacts the way that you think and the way that you see the world. And I think spending time alone also gives you that, meeting new people. There's just so many different ways that we learn and that we grow, and it's truly is a beautiful thing.
Just speaking on like how the world has changed and how we continue to keep learning from it and from our guests. What are some of your favorite moments from the previous season? Because we've had, besides the Daniels episode, we've had such a wide array of guests. Like we've had our teachers, uh, many of our guests were students, such as
Yeah,
yourself, come from such different fields, and they've all had so many different. We even had a journalist on at some point. That was really exciting.
that was, yeah, really cool.
That was, I think, that was one of my favorite moments where he, because
I know exactly what you're about to say. Go ahead, say it.
because you were trying to ask him a question about how you know like how relaxing and things like that can get you ready to be productive. And he was like, no, you're thinking about it completely wrong. Because when you relax and when you do things for yourself, that's not so you can be productive. That's for you.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a huge thing. That is very, very important. And I'm really glad, honestly, like the way that he said it, the reason that he said it, like just because of the fact that he said it that way, I never forgot it. Right? I live with it every time I'm relaxing or something. I'm like, all right, well, it's time to just chill, I guess. And it's actually a really helpful thing to just not go, like play video games, or even like to a larger extent go on a vacation to come back and be prepared to do work, right? Like then you're just going to be thinking about the work the whole time, right? Like nobody
Right.
wants to do that. And so because he said that, I have had, like, I think I've only had like one trip, because of COVID, and it was like in the woods because we couldn't go into like a city or anything. But just because of what he said, I realized that I needed to relax over there instead of think about all of the the work that I can do when I get back, because I'm going to be recharged, right? So I'm really, really grateful actually that he was that harsh with me, and he can be that harsh with me because he's my cousin, so he can do that. But yeah, that was definitely something. It was a great moment. He actually, like, that entire, it wasn't just like his episode for me that was really great, but like I was talking with him a lot around that time, and I do need to check in with him again because his journals are really, really great, and he has some really great advice, obviously, from what we saw and what we talked with him about. But he was the one who told me to try therapy, and that was when I finally got a therapist, and that was also very, very, very helpful in my life. And so just that entire point of realizing how to take care of my mental health, and instead of being an idiot and doing it all for the work that I'm doing, trying to do some of it for myself, and more so than just being focused on, like, oh, this is what I have to do, I have to get this done, right? Like, instead of that mentality, think about the reason why you're doing what you're doing, right? Like, if I'm relaxing right now, I'm doing it to chill. And then after that, don't think about it. Just relax. Like it's, I guess, if you think about it too much, which I feel like I'm doing right now, which I do a lot, if you think about it too much, you won't actually be able to relax. So just sometimes just chill and just relax.
Yeah, it's just such a great, perspective change. I just thought it was really funny that I guess called one of our questions stupid.
Yeah, it was great. Honestly, I loved it. Um, but that was a really great moment. I think, and there were a lot of them. One of our, I guess, not in podcast moments, but out of it that related to the podcast was one of my favorite, and also possibly one of your favorite moments was when Christy made that art for us. Um,
Oh yeah, that was an amazing moment. Yeah, Christy
that was really great.
showed up around episode 3, I think. Um, yeah, she started. It was really cool to have her on because, I mean, her Instagram account is pretty big. Like it's
Yeah,
almost like
very.
30, like 30,000 followers, something like
Hmm.
that. So it's really cool for us to, have a guest with that following. And on top of that, I've been kind of friends with her for a while before that, but I never really got to talk to her, you know, in person. Like, um, yeah, not really. Like I spoke to her a couple times before that,
Hmm.
and yeah, it was the first time we got to really chat like that. And it was really cool seeing, the perspective of an artist and, the various influences and, because, I think art, art in its many forms is telling a story, right? And
Yeah,
you derive that story from a couple, not just couple, many different things in your life. Like even drawing, fan art. It,
yeah,
I mean, you're telling the story whichever character you drew, but you're also telling your story. You're also writing from your experience of seeing that character grow and, do the things that they did, right?
yeah,
So you're telling, you're also telling your own story and your own, and to some degree, your artistic. You're telling your a tale of your artistic journey through that
yeah.
piece as well.
Definitely. And I thought like so many of our guests were so cool, and I loved whenever we talked about art. And there were, I mean, there were a lot of things that I love talking about, and I'm starting to realize it more and more now that there's a certain feel when you're recording a podcast that you obviously know, and all of our guests understand. Is that like when you're recording it and when you are there, and then when you really start to think about certain things. And so I guess when art came up and when like when doing things for yourself came up and when, taking care of yourself came up, I started to realize more and more, like, what I really wanted to do, or what I really like felt passionate about, and what I really wanted to spend my time doing. And I mean, every day that like you record a podcast, right? Feels like you've done something that day, right? Like it's
Yeah,
really nice. And so I guess a lot of people can relate to that. You start off the day right, you feel really good about that day. You feel like you've done something. And I feel like a lot of people get to the point where, and I feel like I've been to this point as well, where sometimes, like the biggest win for that day is like I got out of bed today. That was all I could do, and I couldn't really do much else. So I did that, and that's it. That's all I needed to do today. And then you slowly, like the next day, say you made yourself breakfast, right? And then you slowly build on top of that, and then next thing you realize, you're getting closer and closer to the person that you want to be. And I feel like recording this and talking to so many people and realizing that, one, it takes a lot of steps to get there, right? It's not going to happen overnight, right? It's not going to be like tomorrow, now that we've started recording again and I feel like I'm back into a routine, I'm going to be exactly who I want to be. I still have a long way to go. um, as does pretty much everyone. So it's not like it's a bad thing. It's actually very exciting because everyone's journey is so unique and so exciting, and there's so many different feelings and experiences that come along with it. That it's something that's really really cool. But it also means that, like, you are like, you can look back sometimes and see that, like, okay, today I did this. If I did, like, I did all of these different things. I woke up, I made myself breakfast, and I started meditating. I went outside, right, and I met with friends, and like, you realize that you're slowly pulling yourself into a routine. You got some work done that you had been meaning to do, which is a very satisfying thing, to
right.
finish something that you have been meaning to do for a really long time. And even though you might look at it and think like, oh, it's not that much, right? But if you look at yourself sometimes and you look at where you were like a couple months ago, a couple years ago, and you start to realize that, like I'm on this journey, like I'm further along on this journey, and that's a really good thing. And one, it's a blessing, right? Like it's a really really wonderful thing to have and to be grateful for, that like, hey, I'm here and I should be happy about this. I should be happy that I have this, that I'm at this point along the journey, because this is an exciting thing, right? And even if you can't see that yet, eventually you could get to that point, and it's just it is something to be grateful for, to be on that journey and to look at yourself and to think that you've done something more with your life, or you've gotten further along with your life. And it does feel really good. And I feel like this podcast gives me that feeling. And it makes me want to strive for more of that. It just really makes me want to strive for more. And that's why, when it comes to art, when it comes to all of these different passions, I urge us and I urge everyone listening to this to find that thing, that pushes you to be a better version of yourself, that makes you feel like you've done something with your day. But then, the next day you wake up and you want to be better. You want to be further along that journey. You're grateful for how far you've come, but you want to keep continuing along that journey. And it's a very beautiful thing when you find that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And just, speaking of going on journeys and just looking back, do you have any regrets with that first season? Like things
Hmm.
that you wish we did differently or could have done in addition to?
Yeah, probably. Obviously, I like to think that everything happens for a reason, so I don't want to be too. Obviously, like I don't mind like the way that things turned out. I'm really glad that they turned out the way they did, because that's the reason that we are what we are. We know what we know, and we can be the hosts that, inshallah, we're going to be very good hosts this next season, right? And things are going to be really great, hopefully. But it's yeah, we could have done a lot better. I feel like some episodes I may have talked too much. Some episodes I may have not talked enough. And one thing that I realized just thinking about this whole podcast and everything, and like getting back before this recording, what I realized was the beauty of the podcast itself is seeing how passionate people are when they're talking about what they love, right? It's such an incredible thing to talk to someone about something that they really, really love doing, right? And when you talk to them about that, you see like their eyes light up and you see them really, really enjoy. And that's when you know that they love what they're talking about. And sometimes someone that you may not have had in, like a sat down and had a long conversation with before, and you sit down and you start talking with them and you get into like a really really deep conversation. Those are the moments that like we live for in our relationships and our friendships, and all of these different whenever we're talking to people, like we love to get to those points, right? Like we love to get to where the conversation gets really really deep, and the conversation, like they love what they're talking about, and that's the beauty of the podcast, right? That was what I really loved about it. And so just striving for more of that is probably what I would like to do. Just making sure that the guest is comfortable and talking about what they really love to talk about, making sure that we love what we're talking about, and that it's full of passion and just positive energy, honestly. And also, I guess like technically. I wish I had put more work into the intro and outro beforehand. Towards the end, they got a little bit better, and then also like I think I screwed it up in a couple of episodes, like audio wise, like I messed up the music or something by putting it on the wrong audio track, and then like I ended up like screwing up the music, and then like one of them I forgot, like I accidentally had a typo in the intro and I screwed it up.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember that. And then audio issues with guests and stuff like that probably should have been resolved a lot beforehand. Internet issues and things of that nature. Obviously, for us, it's not as bad because if you
yeah.
cut out, what's up?
I mean, some things we couldn't control, like people's bad internet, our own bad.
Yeah,
We live in the U.S. I'm sorry, all of our internet sucks.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Your bad internet's not an issue though, because you send me your audio track, so it's like not that big of an issue.
yeah, but sometimes our guest had bad audio, and that meant
Yeah,
well, there's only so much we could do. I mean,
I guess like
it's not their fault they had bad audio. I mean, we
yeah,
can't really record these in person, right?
yeah. I
not
guess like
just
if they had bad internet or something, or like we could just like get audio from them or something like that. That's something that we may consider this season. Probably should do something like with them beforehand, and then everybody has the Windows voice recorder app, and on Mac, I'm sure there's an equivalent to that. So we could just have them record it and send it over to us as fast as they, or as best they can. Just to make sure that we can salvage everything good that happened, because re-recording is not fun. We had to re-record the first episode.
uh, yeah,
Luckily, after that, we didn't have to until episode 8 came along. but
uh, yeah. I mean, only one of us had to re-record.
yeah, that was because you can't just like re-record the whole. It's not the same if you just re-record the whole thing. It doesn't feel authentic
Yeah.
unless you have incredible voice acting. Um,
So if you see Amaan in your animated shows, and at some point in the future, know
you
that
know.
it started here. Offer me a job, please, Funimation.
Amazon Prime, let me be on Invincible, please.
Uh,
Uh,
Speaking of
but
which, have you in these last 6 months? I'm sure you spent a lot of your time consuming fiction in its various forms,
yeah,
through, video games, TV shows, books, etc. And I was just wondering if there's any piece of fiction in these last 6 months that have had an impact on you.
these last 6 months. Now I'm wondering, did I watch Your Name before or after the last episode? Was the first
Uh,
thing that came to mind.
I think you watched it after, because I'm pretty sure you watched it like you watched Weathering with You not too long ago, and there wasn't that much time between you watching both of them.
Yeah, yeah. No, I watched Weathering with You during the outage, so I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Your Name was one of the ones I watched in these last 6 months. That was great. That was a really really good movie.
Oh,
The
fantastic.
concept was incredible. Weathering with You was also really really good. And then there's
Starting to get
probably
a very old concept, like the concept of switching bodies, but it's so in such a refreshing way.
yeah, it was like the twists and turns in it. 100% recommend that movie to anyone. I just think it was so good. I think I'm not sure if Creed. Well, I'm pretty sure I saw Creed before our last episode, actually, but I rewatched it. Actually, I was rewatching with my parents, and like we saw the first movie. So Creed, the reason that I love it is because it's very empowering. Like it just makes you like the next day you're just like, man, I want to go to the gym, right? And then you realize like how out of shape you are. But aside from that, right, like you get this feeling of like, oh, I really want to do this, right? Listening to the soundtrack while you're running or working out or doing anything, right? It's just a very, very like different feeling, and I love that the way that they do that. It's very similar to the Rocky movies, and the Rocky theme is incredible. And then Eye of the Tiger during like the montages and stuff, like so good, so good. Creed was very similar in that way. It was very good. So I watched it with my parents, and then it was like 11 or something, and like I told them, I was like, yeah, there's a second one too. We should really watch it. My dad was like, wow, I kind of want to watch it right now. And then like he was like, no, we'll probably watch
What
it like
made you think
tomorrow.
that?
Huh?
I haven't seen Creed 2.
It was really really good, and we ended up watching it in the same night. So it was because my mom was like, wow, it's only 11 o'clock, and my dad was like, listen, I'm down if you're down. She was like, no, that's not what I was saying. And then we ended up watching it, and it was really good, bro. Both the Creed movies, so good. I think I watched, God, I'm like jumping from from genre to genre, but back to like something similar. I guess not really similar to Your Name. Very, very unique concept as well. Again, but also anime. Your Lie in April was great.
Uh,
So I watched that one. That
don't watch that
was
show. Don't watch it if you want to be happy ever again.
yeah. Don't do that to yourself. Um,
Yeah.
so there was that. I caught up on my hero, Demon Slayer. It was incredible. Finished the show and then saw the movie.
The movie is
Amazing. Something
beautiful.
else. So
Yeah.
good. Just not enough good things you can say about Demon Slayer.
Yeah, it's
So
it's
good.
it's such a different shonen. Like it does all the tropes, the power of friendship, etc. Yada yada. Good
Yeah.
fights, tragic backstory. It has all the trappings of your standard shonen, but
Hmm.
it does them in such an excellent way. Like it's so well animated,
Yeah.
and it's strange seeing like this level of empathy towards monsters.
Yeah. Right.
Because yeah, like. because I think to some degree all shonen uh anime protagonists are sympathetic towards their enemies, right?
Hmm.
But like even to like basic en- demons,
Yeah,
uh Tanjiro has this empathy towards them. Like he doesn't forgive them for what they've done. He knows what they've done is wrong,
yeah,
and that they made their decisions. But he also understands that the circumstances that drove them to this point weren't their fault,
yeah,
and that they they went through a lot to get to this point. So what they did wasn't forgivable, but he understands why it
yeah.
happened.
Yeah, definitely. It was just so good. I think like any show or I guess like any story that makes you like connect with the villain is really really good. That's why Batman's amazing because of Joker and all of his villains really like Scarecrow, Riddler, Penguin. All of them are really really good. Spider Man as well. Spider Man, all of his villains are just so like even though the Amazing Spider-Man 2 was not that great of a movie. They did Electro pretty good, I thought. I thought personally, I
Uh,
liked that they made you feel bad for him. I know this is a controversial subject. I didn't mean to
yeah,
get political.
I just yeah, I just really like empathetic villains are always good. Villains don't always have to be empathetic to be good, but a lot of the ones that stay with you tend to be the more empathetic ones.
Oh yeah,
Uh, yeah, because like one of the pieces of fiction I think I've had the pleasure of experiencing these last few months is some of the Yakuza games. Uh, just because most of the time, towards the end, for most of the story, you're just like, yeah, no, this villain's he's terrible. He's a bad
yeah,
guy. I can't wait to finish the game where I take my shirt off and just punch the crap out of him,
yeah,
right? But then towards, but then I don't know, for some reason, for pretty much all the games except for a couple of them have really unredeemable villains, and they make you
yeah,
they understand that they're unredeemable. But like for a lot of them, you know, you learn to really respect uh, the villain at the end. It's like not your enemy, but your adversary who just who had their own journey that just happened to be one that's opposed to yours.
Oh dang, that's really cool. Yeah, I started Yakuza Zero, so hopefully I can experience that as well. But yeah, you've told me a lot about it and a lot about how cool the villains are and how well done they are. And another one that you mentioned a lot, I guess these aren't really the villains, but it's a really important part of the story. In Persona Four, the the like
Yeah,
other versions of yourself, right?
yeah. Persona. I also managed to play Persona 5
Nice,
recently because I, I'm one of the six people that own a PS5.
nice.
I bought Persona 5 for it. And yeah, I just really love the Persona games and just how, they incorporate a lot of the ideas of being human and psychology and things like that into their gameplay and story. And
Yeah,
yeah, Persona 4 did it with with the shadow selves of people who, yeah, just everyone had their own shadow. It was a dark reflection of yourself. You
hmm,
made it as an evil version of yourself, but like everything the shadows were still a part of the other person. They were just exaggerated forms of the
yeah,
parts of themselves that they didn't like. Like uh, you know, one of the characters, he's trying to be popular, and uh, just because he moved from out of town, right? And his dad's the manager of the big supermarket in town that's sort of driving out all the local
yeah,
business. Yeah, and he just try and then his shadow talks about how he really tries to be likable and all that. He's just doing it just to show off, and he's like, no, that's
yeah,
not true. I just true, and then it attacks him because he keeps rejecting it. But yeah, to some
dang,
degree, it was true. He did want to be popular and liked and things like that.
yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like
That's crazy.
they reject. Yeah, because they rejected him because it was exaggerated, but nothing the shadows were saying was false, right? It
Yeah,
just there are parts of ourselves that we're not proud of, right? But
yeah.
if you ignore them, if you reject them, it only ends up hurting you.
That's true. Yeah, that's very real, man. Because, um, you think about like I guess like that's why the first stage of like getting through something or bettering yourself in any way is always um, accepting it, right? Realizing that, yeah, this is a flaw that I have. Because if you can't accept it, then, you're not going to be able to better yourself. You're not going to be able to fix it, right? So that's the first step, is to acknowledge that there's something wrong. Sometimes it's the toughest step, honestly, because having to realize that, and especially with something like um, wanting people to like you, wanting to show off. That's something that so many of us, especially now because of social media, deal with. It's just such a like that's a very very real concept, very tough thing to deal with at times, but it's definitely part of that journey that we all go through. Really really cool concept. I have to play those games as well.
Yeah, definitely. You have to confront that. So yeah, definitely the idea of confronting your inner demons. Such a huge theme. I think that's probably why it resonated with me so much.
Yeah.
The sequel did like Persona 5 did things kind of differently though, because they're because before the way the protagonist activated their persona basically was confronting their inner demons, right?
Hmm.
Theme of that game. But in 5, the idea was different because in that they ripped off a kind of mask that they were wearing. Uh,
Hmm.
basically, they um, instead of confronting their inner demons, they sort of the ripping off the mask was a sign that they're showing their true selves and basically rebelling against what society wanted for them as opposed to
Hmm.
what they really wanted to do, which I thought was a really interesting alternative take as well. Because I mean, I think in society, all of us do wear masks,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, we definitely wear masks.
Yeah, both literally and figuratively, right? Because we also put on, a front that to deal with all the expectations people have of us, and do everything that society expects us to
Hmm.
do, even if that's not really what we want.
Yeah, and it's a very difficult thing to go against because once you um, once you see that this is what people see me as, this is possibly. I think once you get to that point where it becomes, oh, like maybe this is what I am good at, right? Maybe this is like you start to realize that, well, if they think that this is what I'm good at and this is what I'm best for, maybe they're right, right? So for example, if someone like the example that we see and hear most often, especially in the Desi community, in the brown community, is like, my son or daughter should be a doctor, right, or like an engineer or a lawyer. Those are the three, right? They're like the
Right.
only options, and so you see that, and then eventually you get to the point where it's like, well, what else am I going to do with my life, right? Or you get to the point where you start to think like, well, maybe that's all there is for me. That's the only thing I'm good at. I've been good at math my whole life. That's the only thing that I can do. And you forget that you can explore different options, right? And you don't even realize that you have a mask on, right? And sometimes just like being proper in front of other people, or just I like we definitely wear different hats, but I think that's very different from keeping a mask on. And you can really realize it when you start to feel that feeling of, I'm surrounded by people but I still feel alone. And that is a point that is very dark to get to, and very like unfortunate if anyone's ever gotten there, but you definitely know when you're there, is when you start to feel that, like, I'm surrounding myself with people but I still feel alone. That's when you realize that you've been wearing a mask and you haven't been your real self. But it's definitely okay to like wear different hats, right, and be different around different people and different crowds. Obviously you have to be a different person at work, then you have to be around your friends, then you have to be around at school, but that's a very very different
Right.
concept.
Because I think wearing a hat is just showing a different aspect of yourself, as
Hmm.
opposed to wearing a mask where you're just where you're more concealing your true self,
Yeah.
and just I guess to some degree there are some benefits to keeping the mask on,
Hmm.
um, because maybe you're not ready to deal with the pressures of this work, pressures of you know having to show off who you really are, and because there's a lot of pressure to showing what your true self is, and even finding that true self. You might not be aware you have a mask on,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's tough.
You
And
can't you can't take off what you don't know is there.
yeah, and sometimes you do know it's there, and you're like, well, I don't particularly want to be myself, or as like, and that keeps you from doing a lot of things. It keeps you from, if you're not like, and then like if you're not even open to finding your true self, right, which is like, where a lot of us are at, right, where a lot of us, I feel like a lot of us are pressured too much to figure out who we are in college, because like, listen, we have time to figure out who we are. We're only 20, and you're 21 obviously, but like, we're not that old, right? So there shouldn't be this much pressure on people our age to like know everything about who they are and what they want to do with their lives just yet. But we shouldn't be kept from trying to find that, right? And a lot of people are just scared to find that. A lot of people like to think that everything they know is all they need to know, and they don't try to find more out of that. And then a lot of people just follow what they feel like other people want them to do, and they just stick with that, right? And they never open themselves to the possibilities that are out there for them, which is an issue in and of itself. But again, the first thing that you need to realize is that it is a problem, and then you need to figure out how to solve it. And I think the issue that a lot of people run into, and that I've been running into personally in these last few months, is finding out where to start.
Right.
Because I came to the point one day, one night with a friend, where I realized, like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know, if where I am is where I want to be. And but then again, I realized, I was like, well, where else can I go? Right. So you have this point where you realize, like, I'm only doing things for certain people, and I may not actually be wanting to do this. Right. So I'm not doing this for myself at all. I'm wearing a mask, and I'm doing what what it seems like I should be doing. But you don't know, like, okay, well, how do I get away from that? What else am I supposed to do? Where do I start? And I think the obviously, I'm like not the best source of information and guidance, but from what I've heard from others and from what I've felt personally, I think one of the best places to start is writing yourself, like, just in a journal, and writing about your life, whatever you're feeling, and getting all your thoughts organized into one place. Is a really, really good place to start. And then finding books about, if you have a specific belief, then start there. For me, like, luckily I have a belief. I have, I can look into Islamic books, but anyone else that has different beliefs, you can look into that. You can start there. You can start looking into things and finding out, like, what is my purpose? Where should I start? And trying to find that path for yourself. It's a very important thing. I know it's a very difficult thing to think, like, where should I start? But I think, reading and writing are two very powerful tools. So just start writing, and you'll just find somewhere, and then look up books. Like you can literally nowadays just Google, as you could just say that, what books will help me find out where I want to go in life, and you can look it up specific to your own beliefs. You can look it up generally. You can find all of these different things, but that's just, it's a tough spot to be in. And I don't know the full extent to what it's like, but I have an idea of what it's like to be there, and it's not easy.
Yeah. It's, yeah, finding yourself is, a journey in of itself. Because if it was easy, we probably would have found the solution a few episodes ago.
Yeah,
We're still going through that journey ourselves. I mean, even our more established guests are going through that journey, and
yeah,
everyone's slowly finding who they are, and even after you feel like you find who you are is not static.
yeah.
Who you, yeah,
It is a
because you're,
variable.
yeah, I mean, we're humans. We're constantly evolving as we get older, as we learn more. There's no one process towards finding who you are, what you want to be, right? Because
Yeah,
some people are inspired by others. Some people some people just, you know, find out, look at something and just suddenly get inspired. You can find it through fiction, through, listening to a talk, to watching others do something that you might be interested in.
Yeah.
So finding yourself is really probably a continual process that you go through your entire life, and
Yeah.
it'll be a process just not only finding who you are, but shaping who you are.
Yeah, I think getting to that point, for everyone, it feels like this. Getting to that point where you realize, like, so one, you get to that point where you think, like, oh wow, I've learned so much about myself and about the world, and this is really cool. Like you get out of high school and college, and you're like, wow, I'm finally an adult. I know so much more than I knew before. And you look back and you think that, like I am really happy with where I've gotten to. And then one day you get to this point where you realize how far away you really are from, who you want to be. Not just in terms of your habits and what you do, but in terms of how much you know about yourself, and how much, how experienced you are with finding yourself and your purpose, your passion. These are very deep subjects. And once you find out that, like, oh, I'm only 2% of the way there, and I thought I was so much further, it's one, it's very, I don't want to say, so I guess it does make me, and I feel like a lot of people, a bit nervous to think that, oh, I'm so far away from where I want to be, as a person. But it's also exciting because that means there's just so much we don't know. There's so much possibility. Think of it as like, finding yourself is like the entire ocean, and we've only discovered like a small percentage of it, right? Which means that, yeah, there could be, a kraken out there, which could, like, be very, very terrifying. But there could also be mermaids and Atlantis somewhere, possibly Aquaman. There's probably a lot of cool things in there that we have yet to discover. And I think it's very similar to ourselves in the sense that once
It's
you start
mostly
finding
water.
things, huh?
Also mostly water.
True, true. It is just like the world. We are mostly water. And I think just, like finding yourself is something that can be very, very exciting. So it is all about perspective. Again, which is also not an easy thing to just say. Like, it's not like you could just say, oh, well, just be happy, and then someone's like, oh, I didn't think about that, right? Like, it's not that's not
Depression
really how
has
it works.
evolved.
Yeah, we did it. It's not really how it
Canceling
works.
therapy right now.
Yeah, I've just gotten all therapists out of their jobs. Sorry, guys, but it's a really exciting thing because there's so many, and I guess like all of us have gotten to the point, where like there's a certain feeling or a certain, experience that you like you feel in the moment, and you've never felt something like that before, and there's a certain beauty to it, and you wish that you could describe what that feeling is like to someone else. Which is why art is so beautiful, because we can use art to describe those feelings that we can't describe with words.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
yeah, the great thing about art is that, it's the artist is transcribing, like, their own journey, their own artistic journey, their own journey through life, through these, paintings, literature,
yeah.
etc. But in addition to that, like, whoever views it, not only do they get to experience the journey of the artist and
Hmm.
their story, but they sort of go through their own, they tell their own story. They go through their own journey when they look at a piece of art. When,
Yeah.
like, we went to the DMA
Oh
not too
yeah.
long ago, and there was a cubist artist. I can't remember his name.
I forgot it as well.
Yeah, but he was a really famous one, and we got to look at his exhibit, and just,
Hmm.
you know when you look at one of those paintings, you met like you read the caption and you just think of, the things he went through and how they might be influencing. Like, you saw how, after the war his colors became more muted, more brown and dull, and you could
Yeah.
infer he went through a lot during the
Hmm.
war, right? But in addition to that, when you look at those, because cubism isn't very, you know concrete. The shapes are very
Hmm.
not very, realistic. They take their own shape. You just wonder what, people. just both of us can look at the same painting and just come up with something completely different, right?
Hmm.
Just thinking about the emotions he must have gone through. To some degree, you're right about what he's going through, but to some degree, it's you projecting your own interpretation
Yeah.
of what you're feeling right now or what you've been feeling throughout your life into it and just empathizing with it because you think that there's something in there for you as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that, like you can associate a certain piece of art. A lot of the times, this has happened to, all of us at some point is, you associate a certain song with a memory or you associate a certain song with a certain feeling, right? And so every time you listen to that song, it either takes you back or it takes you to that certain emotion. Sometimes, I feel like all of us know this smell of like, spring when you were in like first or second grade and like you smelled spring for the first time, and you just like being able to go outside, that feeling of spring break. And so every time you smell that, which is usually like the god, I don't even know how to describe, like when it rains outside, like after that, like the smell in the springtime, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's that earthy kind of smell.
Yeah, so that kind of smell we all associate with something, and a lot of the time it could be a memory. Sometimes there's a certain food that you associate with a certain memory. There's a certain snack that you were eating when you saw like Lord of the Rings for the first time, or any movie or any show or anything, and you have a certain memory associated with that. And so all of these things are so. The wonderful thing is that they're so unique to the individual. But at the same time, like they're unique to every individual, right? So everybody can interpret it in their own way. And that's the beautiful thing about art. And that's also the beautiful thing about everyone going on their own journey. It's just such an incredible thing. And we all have to live with, our own journeys. And once you can start being grateful for it and start being grateful for these emotions and these feelings and all of these different incredible experiences that you feel while traveling, while eating, while playing a game or seeing something or meeting someone new, all of these different experiences are just something that can change our perspective, and that if we do change our perspective now, we can be a lot more grateful for it and truly like live our lives.
Right. So just we're approaching the end of the episode, and so
Yeah.
we'd like to keep things light as well, in between our dives into the human condition and
Yeah.
uh, your journey. But like, just to start off the new season, if you could get one guest that has passed away, like so, I guess that's at some point in history, right? They're not currently alive. You could go back in time
Mm,
and pick up a guest. Who would you get?
dang. Whew, there's a lot
Yeah,
of
because
people.
we're talking a lot about watching people, going through a journey and helping people discover themselves and discovering ourselves as well. But like, what is one guest whose journey you'd like to hear about from them
Hmm,
from the past?
that's tough, dude. That is very tough. Can you go first? I need to think about this.
Oh man, it'd be so difficult, but I kind of would like to hear from Tolkien, just because
Yeah.
Tolkien, yeah, just because he went through so much through his life, like World War I,
Yeah.
and you know, people back because everyone has lived through lots of different historical events, and that's shaped who they are. But he literally lived through World War I and all that. I would just love to hear like the various things that influenced his writing and how what his whole creative process was, and how he you know found that he you know enjoyed sharing to others his creations. Just because I mean, for me, he's possibly the best fiction writer in history.
Yeah.
I mean,
Definitely.
his legacy and his creativity are unrivaled, and he's influenced so many people. And I just would love to just hear from him about his life and how his life connected to his works.
That would be so interesting. Um, Dang, I'm still sort of drawing a blank. For some reason, the first thing that came to mind, this is possibly because we were just talking about art, like right now, would have been Salvador Dali. But that would be a really cool one. I'm trying to think, but we were just talking about art so much that it's most of what I'm thinking of right now. So for now, that would probably be the one. Maybe, yeah, no, I think maybe like a previous Muslim leader, because Islamic history is just so interesting. Like to go back to the time or any point in history really where like science and technology were like booming, but like hundreds and thousands of years ago, like what was that like? Because nowadays we have technology and science at a completely different level, right? Like what was it like when they first discovered like algebra, or when they first discovered like when Newton discovered so much about physics, and like came up with all of his different laws, about gravity and everything, Einstein's theories of relativity and all that, all of those different things. And I guess maybe like a previous Islamic era where they were discovering so many different things. Because I think algebra was discovered by Muslims, so that would be really cool. Or maybe just an Islamic leader that, like, there's Al Ghazali, who took like 10 years to himself to like learn, to conquer his ego, and to like he wrote a whole book about it. And so many of these things are very very interesting. So I guess like a leader maybe at that time, but I don't know if I can find anyone specific. But I guess like that's another place where my head went, aside from an artist. But that would be really really cool, just going to like the past and finding out, like, because obviously we know now what it's like for all these scientific discoveries and like labs, and through research and everything. And like we recently had like fairly recently, relatively, we had our relativity, we had our first black hole, like a first picture of a black hole, right?
Right.
Which was super super cool. But like what about when they were first coming up with the theory of black holes, right? Like that's really cool. When they first learned the universe was like always expanding, dude, like all of these things are really really cool. And then you go even further back, what about when they first discovered just like that the earth was round, right? Like
Yeah. I
all
mean,
of these different things.
I kind of would like to interview whoever made the decision to say Pluto wasn't a planet anymore.
Yeah, right, like that would
Just
be pretty cool.
I just want to meet them. Just why would they break people's hearts like that?
Yeah,
Like
why would you do that?
I understand why, but it's still. I
Come
mean,
on,
because
bro.
I mean, in first and second grade, I still had textbooks that said Pluto was a planet, and then
Yeah.
I go to third grade, I get a new textbook. Pluto's not a planet.
Yeah, right. And like, I mean, okay, like what is this? Just a floating
It's a planet.
asteroid now?
It's a planetoid because they discovered like
Oh
stuff
yeah,
beyond
planetoid.
Pluto that was like similar or slightly larger size, and they were like, well, if we're gonna have to keep counting if Pluto's still a planet, guys. So
Yeah,
yeah,
but I mean, shoot, yeah, this that was disappointing when Pluto was not a planet
I
anymore.
just wonder if the guy who discovered Pluto was still alive because I know it was discovered most recently. So I just wonder if the guy, well, what if it felt like for the family of the guy who discovered Pluto, what their reaction was. They're just like, "What do you mean, Grandpa's planet's not a planet?"
Yeah, right. We discovered this. Let us have this. There was that one Rick and Morty episode where Jerry goes to Pluto and he's like, Pluto is a planet. And everybody that lives on that planet at the time, they were like, yes, he's our leader now, or something. It was so funny, but freaking, yeah. Um, it was a very sad day when we found out that the solar system only has 8 planets now, which sucks. But they're very cool planets at that. They're very cool, very good. Like the fact when you found out that Jupiter was mostly gas, how do they know? Who
I
went
I'm
there to find out? Like,
sure they had a way of testing their
probably.
satellites or something.
Yeah, it's really cool though. And then like the rings on Saturn, they're very very cool. Like what are those made of?
I think mostly ice and rocks.
That's insane. Like how did those rings form? So cool. It's probably because they froze around, but like the fact that they just froze into rings like that, so cool. But anyways, I would probably love to hear more about science and all of that. We should get a guest. They can tell us about all these things that we just ask about. All of these, like we get an astrologist or something, ask them about
That's not
space.
the same thing about that. Even an astronomer,
Astronomy.
astrologist would talk
Uh,
to us about Scorpios, Scorpios,
oh
and
yeah,
things like that.
goodness, bro. Oh my god. Yeah, that would not. Well, maybe we could do one of those. That'd be a fun one too. But
Uh,
yeah,
But yeah, so I think that wraps things up. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. As always, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at a cup of coffee pod, or email us in our emails in the description below. You can listen to this on YouTube or Spotify and most other places where podcasts are listened to. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you next week.
bye everyone.